To block or not to block? That is the question. For knitters and crocheters, let's talk about it. Hi, it's Sonia here with The Pretty Stitch with today's episode of Yarn Matters. So today we're going to talk about blocking, and blocking is for crocheters and knitters, and you can choose to block if you want to, or you can choose not to block if you want to. And some of you might be wondering what the heck is blocking. So we are going to talk about all things blocking today. So personally, I block almost every project that I do, but it's not always necessary if you don't want to. But before we get into why I like to block, what is blocking? So blocking is basically after you've completed your project, whether you've knitted or crocheted it, Tunisian crochet, even if you did weaving, knitting machine, whatever. It's basically taking your project and finishing it. It's your finishing steps. So what you do is you can wet block, you can steam block, you can put it in the washing machine. So if you're wet blocking, for instance, after you've wet your project, you just spread it out. Let's say you're making a shawl. And a lot of times when you're working with lace, it kind of looks like this when you're stitching it up and you're like, oh, that looks terrible. That doesn't look like the picture. But when you block it, if you wet block it, you're straightening it out, you're spreading out all of the stitches, and then you're basically opening it up, and then you're like, oh, there it is, it's beautiful. So it's basically the finishing step in your project, and you don't have to block. Some people never block their projects, but I personally block almost every single project I do. And sometimes I do a really hard block. Let's say it is a lace project, so I'm going to spread that sucker out for all it's worth. Or if I made a hat and I just kind of want to freshen it up, straighten it out a little bit, that's just going to be a very light block. So it just depends on what I made. So why would you want to block? Well, of course you want your project to look its best, and again, the lace description. But another reason why is when you're working on a project, we're human beings, and sometimes our projects get dirty when we're working on them. Our hands have natural oils on them. Nothing wrong with that, but that can transfer onto your project. You might drop your project on the ground, and then it's picking up dust and it's picking up dirt, especially if you're working on a bigger project. Let's say a blanket, and you're carting that thing all over the place, or you're eating snacks in between and you've got crumbs on the project. Or let's say you live with little ones or pets, and your little one comes over and they just ate a chocolate bar and they've got chocolate on it, and they're like, oh mommy, look, and they're, what are you making? And they're touching it, and you've got chocolate on your project. I mean, hopefully that won't happen, but stuff happens. So blocking can take care of all of that stuff. So you're probably wondering, what do I need to block my project? There are things out there that you can use to block your project. There are blocking wires, there are blocking foam mats you can use, blocking boards. There's all different kinds of things to block your projects. Personally, I don't use any of those things. I'm on a budget, and I am a firm believer in using what you have. Now, there's nothing wrong if you have those things. Like, I would love to have some of these really nice wooden blocking boards, but again, it's not in my budget, so I don't have that. So basically what I use is water, I use soap, I use the towels that I have on hand. Sometimes I'll even use books to, let's say if I made a shawl and it kind of wants to spring back, I will use a heavy book that I have and just stick on top of there to hold it down. So I'm a firm believer of use what you have. So I'm going to show you a couple projects that I have made in the past. So I had planned on doing a blocking video a very long time ago, over 3 years ago, when I first really started my channel, and I actually filmed footage to to show how I block and a couple projects, and then my husband got sick and unfortunately he passed away. So that just never, I just never finished it. So I'm going to take some of that old footage because it's good footage. It shows how I block using just regular household items, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I'll show you a couple projects that I had made in the past and blocking them. So basically blocking, you know, it just cleans it up, just takes it to the next level. But again, you don't have to block every project if you don't want to. Certain yarns don't lend to blocking as well as others. So what I mean by that is acrylic yarns. I love acrylic yarns. I use a lot of acrylic yarns, but they don't always respond very well to a traditional wet block where, you know, you wet it, you spread it out. It just doesn't really hold its shape. So what you can do is you can kill the yarn by using steam, which you want to be really careful when you do that. So how I like to steam my projects, if I'm going to do that, is I will wet my project lightly. I usually wash them first. Some projects you can wash in the washing machine. It's like a heavy duty blanket. Like the nice thing with acrylic yarn, especially like let's say Red Heart Super Saver, like that is a workhorse yarn, and I find that yarn to be really great for blankets, something that's kind of going to get a lot of wear and tear. Like if you're making a blanket for a child, Red Heart Super Saver is a great choice. It comes in so many different colors. You know, there's going to be a color out there in Red Heart Super Saver that will appeal to a child. So those projects I often just stick in my washing machine on cold, and I have gentle cycles, so it's not like, you know, getting super beat up in there. And obviously when you are doing that, you want to make sure you do not wash your project with Velcro. Velcro is a crochet and knit nemesis. It will kill your project, it will ruin your project, it will stick on there, and no, Velcro is a no with washing your crochet items. So if you're washing a large blanket, make sure there's no Velcro in there, and you know, pop it in there on a gentle cycle, then take it out, spread it out somewhere, and gently, you know, just let it dry. Some people will use their bed to block items, especially if they live in a small area and they don't have a lot of floor space to lay something down. They will use their bed. I've seen other people use clotheslines, you know, just hang it up on a clothesline. I actually used to do that. I used to live somewhere where I had a clothesline, and they were great for blocking large blankets. Don't have clothesline anymore, so got to make do with what I got. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to block. And again, you don't need to go out and spend a lot of money to get blocking materials. So next you will see the old footage of me, a younger me. I feel like it was a different lifetime ago me, but explaining blocking, you know, what I showed back then, it still applies to today, and I still use those methods today. So I like to block most of my projects by washing them first, and then I just lay them out on the floor over a towel, stretch them into shape, and just let it dry, and you know, then the project is done. There's another way that I've blocked too, and that's with using some heat, and usually I will use that when I have made a project with acrylic yarn. And acrylic yarn can be a little bit rough sometimes, so a little bit of heat will help soften that. But you have to be careful, because when you do use heat on acrylic, you can burn the project actually, because it can melt. So ask me how I know. I actually made a pot holder a long time ago using acrylic, and then I decided to use that pot holder, pulled it out, really dumb move on my part, and burned a hole clean through it. So yes, if you're making a pot holder, use cotton, definitely, all the way. Natural fiber, cotton, 100% cotton. So anyway, so yeah, you can use a little bit of heat, and another term for that might be called killing the yarn. So if you've ever heard on Facebook or anywhere, if someone says, oh, I killed this yarn, it's nothing gruesome. It's basically applying some heat to the yarn to make it a little bit more pliable and it can be just a nice little technique you can use. So I'm going to show you some easy blocking techniques that you don't need to go out and spend a lot of money on. So let's get started, and I'm going to show you a couple projects first that I am going to block, and then we'll get to the blocking. So this is a project that I have worked on for a while, and it's now done. I've got my ends woven in, so you don't want to block. Now sometimes some people will block a swatch if you want to know how, because your yarn can grow, especially if you use wool or alpaca. When you're knitting that or crocheting it, it can kind of be all like, this. So when you block it, it kind of grows and blooms and can really show off the stitch pattern. So sometimes, let's say if you are making a sweater out of wool, you might want to block it first, like a little swatch, and see how it grows with washing. Because if you make a certain size when before you blocked it and then you block it, your sweater might be too big. So, or blocking can help you the other way. If you're like, oh, the sweater's too small, and then after you've blocked it, it grows and then it fits you perfectly. So blocking a little swatch might come in handy sometimes. I generally don't do that. I'm kind of like fly by the seat of my pants kind of person and just hoping for the best. But, sometimes I have done it. So anyway, so what I'm going to block today for you. So I had made a little doll set, and some of you have seen this in some previous video if you watched my Bust My Stash. So here's a little doll bag, 18-inch doll bag, and it looks fine, but this yarn has been sitting for quite some time. And, it looks clean, but it kind of has a funky little smell, when something's sitting in a bin for a while. So we're going to block this guy. And I have more of the set. So here is the hat, and the same kind of deal. The hat looks fine, but I just want to block it just to, clean it up a little bit, and just to make sure that, I can put it into the shape that I want. And little sandals, the sandals are fine, but again, just basically for cleaning purposes. And we have the little top that I made, so we're just going to block this whole set. And then here are the pants too. So here's a hat that I made, and again, it looks fine, nothing wrong with it, but I just know, like, this hat, while I was making it, it did fall on the floor. Actually, the pom-pom to me, I bought it from Amazon, and I do recommend these pom-poms, but I just feel like it's a little bit wonky. So blocking the hat will actually help the pom-pom as well, because I'm going to wet block this. I'm going to give it a little bath first, and the pom-pom will get cleaned as well, and then I can just kind of fluff it out and to how I want it to, because I feel like all the fluffing is going to the side. So we're just going to give this a light block, because there is a difference between a light and a hard block. Like, I'm just going to lightly wash this, and you'll see that how I do it, and just pretty much lay it down into its shape. A hard block is really stretching it out, especially with lace. If you have a lace shawl and you really, you want to pull that guy out and really, open up those stitches. But these stitches don't really need to be opened up that much. I'm just basically going to clean it up, with some soap and water and let it dry, and then it's all ready to go. Okay, so here I have some tools to get ready to block my project. So what I have here is I just have a basic bowl here, and I have some towels. I'm actually going to use these towels to help me block the heat blocking here. I have a lingerie bag or delicates bag that you could use in your wash. So if you don't want to hand wash, this bowl is going to be used for hand washing to block that way. If you don't want to do that, I have machine washed a lot of things when I've blocked. If it's a hat, let's say it's made out of acrylic, that's pretty easy care. I just throw it in this bag, put it in the wash it on the delicate cycle, with some other things, and pull it out, and then I go ahead and block it. I also have used pillowcases to stick things in. Like, let's say I made a shawl, and I've put my shawl inside the pillowcase because it's larger, might not fit into the smaller bag, and then I just knot up the top, or I've even tied a rubber band around here, and again threw it in the wash. Baby blankets. Now this is a king size pillowcase, So if you've made a baby blanket or receiving type blanket, they're smaller, they fit in here. And again, I use that with acrylic yarn. Acrylic yarn is very easy care. So I blocked with that. I also have, here's more towels. Since I'm going to show you a hand washing with my blocking. So I have towels for that, and then I'll have a towel to lay down for this stuff to dry. So basically, you know, things that you already have in your home that you can use to block your project. And since we're going to do some heat blocking here, I've got my iron here, ironing board, and I have a little squirt bottle because I'm going to want to mist the project, and my project's already been cleaned. So again, basic household items. Okay, so we're going to get started on the hand washing with the blocking. So I've got my bowl. You can also just fill up your sink as well, but I'm going to use the bowl, and I have some shampoo here, just some basic shampoo to use as my soap because that's a little bit more gentle. And shampoo is really good if you are blocking a natural fiber. You know, just think of wool. Wool's kind of like a type of hair. It's really good for wool, and sometimes even if you use conditioner as well, let's say you're making a wool hat and it's a little bit scratchy, the conditioner can help soften it. Now they do make things specifically for washing wool, but I'm on a budget. I don't have those things, and I've used shampoo many times on some wool things, and conditioner, it's come out fine. So, you know, it's up to you. You know, you can do your research, do whatever works best for you. But we are blocking, I think all of our items are acrylic, so we're just using just regular shampoo here. So I'm going to squirt some in the bowl there, and we're going to fill her up. I like to just use, if you are doing wool, then, you know, definitely cold water, but I'll just probably use lukewarm water for this. And just fill up your bowl. Not all the way to the top because you're going to be dunking your items in there to clean them, but you know, maybe halfway. Alright, so I have my soap in here. I'm just going to give her a little bit of a swish, get it ready. And I also have my towel handy. You want to have a towel that's handy when you're doing this. And I'm just going to dunk in my items. These are small, so I can do a whole bunch at once. So in they go. There's the little sandal. Another sandal, the hat, and let's say I don't think the other hat's going to fit, but we'll do that one next. So what you do is you just, you know, swish it around, wash it up. Now these I actually could have washed in the washing machine because this is 100% acrylic. It would have been fine. I would have popped it in to that lingerie bag, just thrown it in, washed it on delicate, and pulled it out. But, you know, hand washing works fine too. So I'm just hand washing these suckers, these guys. And you don't have to go too crazy, especially if you're using wool, because wool can felt, so you do want to be careful, but you don't have to worry about that with this. So you want to make sure it's nice and saturated. And now I'm going to get ready to rinse these out. So I'm going to just drain some of this water here. And just start. I like to just hold it under the water, squeeze her. And then after I've rinsed it, I have already laid my towel out on the floor, and I'm going to put this on here. So this one's rinsed pretty good. We need to dunk a little bit more. And you can do this however you want. If you just want to, you know, dump everything in the sink, throw it in the wash. But the main thing is you want to get it clean. Because, again, this yarn's been sitting. It, you know, doesn't smell the best. And if I was gifting this for somebody, you know, I'd want it to be clean. And sometimes, too, when yarn is sat for a while, or especially with white, if you were, you know, handling it a lot, the natural oils in your hands, it can kind of dull the color a little bit. So I've, you know, really been pleasantly surprised after I've washed how more vibrant my colors looked. So that's another reason why blocking is really nice. So I'll squeeze out the excess water. So I just put my little project right on top of this towel that I have laid out on the floor. Okay, so now I have all of my projects that I wanted to wet block by washing on this towel here. So as you can see, they look pretty sorry, you know, and I did wring them out, but you know, I don't want to you know, squeeze it too much, especially this is acrylic, so acrylic's pretty forgiving. But if you were using, you know, more of a natural fiber like wool, something a little bit more delicate, even, you know, I'd love to work with cashmere, you know, you want to be careful with that. So you don't want to wring it out too much. I would just, you know, gently wring it out and just dunk it on this towel. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to roll up this towel, and that'll help to absorb the excess water. So I'm going to do that off camera because I can't do things. I'm holding the camera with one hand, so I'm going to roll it up, and then I'm going to show you what I do to help absorb the excess water. It's not very scientific. Some people might be horrified, but it works for me. So here are all my projects rolled up in the towel, and I usually just leave them on the floor here like this. And to help absorb the excess water, I just step on it. Some people might think that's horrible, but it works for me. You know, it's in the towel. And to me, that really helps to absorb the excess water. Now again, if it is, you know, a really delicate project, I might not. But again, as I said before, acrylic is very forgiving. So if you wanted to just stick your hand on it and gently absorb the excess water, if you had a more delicate project, then, you know, you can certainly do that. So I'm going to finish absorbing up this water. It doesn't have to be, you know, you just don't want it to be dripping because then it takes forever to dry, but absorb as much water as you can. Okay, so here I have a towel laying on my floor, and I am going to take out the items that are in the wet towel that we absorbed the water. This is a dry towel, and we are going to start just placing the items on there and just laying them out. So here's everything on the towel. Looks like a big mess. You know, I literally just dumped them on the towel. And now we are going to get ready to make them all look pretty and nice. So I'm going to start with the sandals here. And literally I just get on my hands and knees and I just reshape them to how I want. Looks like all the ends are tucked in and good, so I just might gently spread it out a little bit and just lay them down, reshape them into sandals. That's what we want. And they are all set. So next I'm going to take this bag, and again I just smooth it out with my hands. Now this is the right side. Just kind of smooth her out into the shape that I want. And see, here are our little flowers. The flowers are all kind of crunched up there. So I just smooth them out to how I want them to be. Now when you're blocking cotton, basically once it's dried, it's really going to hold its shape. Acrylic does not hold its shape as well, but I know some people don't even believe in blocking acrylic at all. But I think it does help a little bit. When I don't block my acrylic projects, I just don't think they look as nice. They don't look as crisp and nice. So yeah, this just doesn't need a hard block, but I already noticed just washing it, it just looks so much fresher and nicer. And the same with the pants. The pants don't need to be stretched out too much, but just, you know, I just smooth it. And again, you want to make sure your hands are clean. I'm sure that's like a given, but you never know. Okay, so the doll clothes have pretty much been blocked. You know, they're ready. All what needs to happen now is they're just going to dry. And then once it's dry, it's done. And you know, that's just how I like to block some things. I use this method a lot. And I'm going to do this hat now, and I'm going to show you a little trick with these pom-poms. Yes, you can wash them, and they even work with some stuffed animals. I've had some stuffed animals that my kids loved, and they, you know, they spilled something on it or whatever. And, you know, you have to throw it in the wash, and it comes out looking, you know, pretty horrible. And I found, again, if you're going to wash a stuffed animal, or even if you have a bunch of these and you just want to throw them in the wash, put them in if you don't want to hand wash it, just put it in one of those delicate bag or lingerie bag or a pillowcase, and then pull it out, and then you want to let it air dry. And just take a comb and just comb it and let it dry, and it dries up beautifully. But I want to shape up this hat first, because you're looking at that and it's just, you know, it's not looking cute. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to shape the hat. Now you could certainly do this on a table if you had like a large dining room table. And now they just need to dry. So usually if you know, they'll dry overnight just fine. If you didn't absorb a lot of the water, it might take a little bit more time. So what I've done is actually have plugged in a fan and just had it blow on low on my projects, especially if I needed to give it to somebody like the next day. Have to guarantee it's dried, blocked, ready to go. So yeah, you can have a little, like, you know, a fan blowing on it gently. I wouldn't have it on high because it might blow it across the room, but just gently, especially with like the sandals, you know, they're very light. So this is how I wet block. All right, so now we're going to get ready to do some heat blocking. So I have my iron on, and I just have it on a lower setting, not the lowest that it can go, but you don't want it to have it on the highest setting. And then what I like to do is I take a towel and I lay it on my ironing board. So I have one of these towels here. Then I take my project that I want to heat block here. So I'm trying to do this through the camera, so hopefully it'll be okay. So I wanted to open up this edging a little bit more, which you can't see. Here we go. All right, so I have this edging. And just to open up this, now this blanket I already had did the wet blocking that you just saw, where I washed it, laid it down. Now with blankets, they can be harder to block because you might not have a big space. If you're fortunate enough to have a clothesline, you could do the same thing where, you know, you wash your blanket and then have it on the clothesline. I used to have a clothesline at my old house. I don't have one at my new house, and I actually used to block some blankets that way, but you know, that's we don't have one anymore. So usually I use the living room floor if I can and just tell people to not walk on it. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to mist it a little bit with water, just plain water, not soaking, but just misting it a little bit. And let's start actually with the corner here. So a little misting. And just stretching her out, opening this up. And then what I like to do is to protect it, because as I said before, it can burn, I stick another towel over top so your project's sandwiched in between. Then I just take my iron and just gently run it on top. And it just kind of helps to relax that acrylic a little bit. I mean, if you had a steamer, you might be able to do it like that, but I don't have one. So, and then I just kind of look at it, see how she's doing. And it can also help to soften up acrylic too, so it's not, you know, as scratchy. Some acrylic is very scratchy. Some is not, it just depends. So yep, I'm just going to lightly iron over top of it, and I just have the towel here just as an extra protection for my project because I worked hard on it. I don't want anything to happen to it, but I just wanted to open it up a little bit more. So as you can see, it just opened it up a little bit more. So here is another blocking project. So I have some other projects that I showed how to block. I just wanted to show this one. I'm not going to show you, how I'm going to, straighten it all out. It's going to take a while. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet block this. So I will give it a little bit of a bath. I'm probably going to hand wash it in some lukewarm water with some soap. Rinse it out. Get as much excess water as I can out of it, and then I'm just going to lay it down on these towels, what you see right here, and just start pulling the stitches out so they can really pop. So you can see how it looks okay, but it doesn't look great. I really want those fans to stand out, and then the ones here on the end, you can really see that they look all right. I mean, this one here, it's kind of bunched up. It needs to be opened up quite a bit. Okay, so I actually moved to a different room to block this because when it was really pulled out, it was quite long. So here we are in the living room, so I apologize if the light isn't that great. But you can see it looks a whole lot better than when we started. And again, I did a wet block. And sometimes when you're blocking, you will discover things like I did, that I had forgotten to weave in some ends. I thought I got them all, but I didn't. So I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, right down here. So once it's all dry, we will fix that. But now I'm just going to let this dry. I've pulled all the stitches out. I think it looks pretty nice. So there you have it with blocking. I hope it was helpful for you. And again, this applies with knitting and crocheting. You're working with yarn and they need to get blocked. So again, if you've never blocked before, I highly encourage you to block. You don't have to go crazy about it, but I think you'll be really pleased with the results if you've never done it before, so that your project can really look its best. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!